The millionaire's mansion was filled with gold, silence, and panic the night his child cried from hunger, because every shelf was full yet nothing could feed her, and in that moment of quiet desperation, the one thing no amount of money could buy was already walking the halls with a mop in her hand. No one knew how close the baby was to danger, or that the solution would come from the least expected place, and certainly no one imagined what the cleaner would offer when all hope seemed gone. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that change lives, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to our channel Pure Kindness before the story continues. Alaric Voss was known in business magazines as a man who owned cities in shadows, a millionaire whose wealth could silence storms, yet inside his marble estate he stood helpless as his newborn daughter weakened. The baby had been born fragile, her mother lost to complications that left the house echoing with grief, and strict medical instructions had limited what could be given to her. A sudden reaction to formula left her unable to keep food down, and the private doctors, the emergency calls, the frantic pacing across polished floors all led to the same terrifying pause. Dime was slipping. The nursery lights glowed softly, toys lay untouched, and the cries were no longer loud but faint, which frightened Alaric more than screams ever could. The mansion staff moved carefully, afraid of making mistakes, afraid of the man whose power they respected but whose eyes now carried something broken. Among them was Mireia Salas, a quiet cleaner who arrived before sunrise every day and left after sunset, her presence barely noticed. She had lost her own home years ago, survived by taking whatever work came, and carried a story no one asked to hear. Beneath her plain uniform was the body of a woman who had recently given birth, though her baby had not lived long enough to feel the world. She had returned to work because grief did not pay rent, and because movement was the only thing that kept her from drowning in memories. That night, as Mireia wiped the banister outside the nursery, she noticed the change in the baby's cries and felt a familiar ache in her chest, both physical and emotional. She understood hunger in a way textbooks never explained. When she saw the doctors shake their heads and heard the hushed urgency in the hall, something inside her made a decision before fear could stop it. She stepped forward not as a cleaner, but as a mother whose arms still remembered the weight they had lost. What happened next unfolded without ceremony, without grand speeches or promises, only a quiet act born from instinct and compassion. Mireia offered what she had, knowing the risk to her job, knowing the strange looks she might receive, knowing that dignity sometimes meant stepping beyond invisible lines. In that moment, class, wealth, and status faded, replaced by a simple truth that nourishment could save a life. As the baby began to settle, her breathing eased, and the color returned to her tiny face, the room changed. The tension that had pressed against the walls loosened, and even the doctors watched in stunned silence. Alaric, standing frozen near the window, felt his knees weaken as he realized what was happening. The woman he had barely noticed was doing what his fortune could not. Relief rushed through him, tangled with shame for a world where such kindness went unseen. Days passed, and the crisis faded into recovery. The baby, named Eloan, grew stronger, her fragile beginnings replaced by steady breaths and curious eyes. Yet the real transformation was happening beyond the nursery. Alaric began to see his home differently, noticing the people who kept it alive. He learned Mireia's story not from gossip but from observation, from the tired strength in her posture, from the way she paused outside the nursery even after her task was done, checking on the child as if love had left fingerprints in the air. Mireia never asked for anything. She returned to her routine, scrubbing floors and emptying bins, carrying her grief quietly. But the mansion no longer felt like a place of shadows to her. It became a place where her pain had found purpose. Alaric, changed by the vulnerability he had witnessed, began to make choices that reflected gratitude rather than control. He arranged support, education, and stability for Mireia, not as charity but as respect, understanding that kindness given without humility was just another transaction. As Eloan grew, so did the bond between the lads that had intersected in crisis. The child reached for Mireia with familiar comfort, and Mireia learned to smile again, not because her loss was erased, but because love had found a new shape. The mansion, once cold with wealth, warmed with laughter and shared meals, with moments that reminded everyone inside that humanity was the greatest inheritance of all. If this story is touching your heart right now, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes goodness still exists, and subscribe to Pure Kindness so more stories like this can be told. In time, Alaric used his influence to quietly support mothers in need, creating programs that honored dignity rather than pity. He never spoke publicly about the night that changed him, but in private moments he watched his daughter sleep, knowing her life was linked forever to a woman who had nothing yet gave everything. Mireia, once invisible, became family not by title, but by truth. Before this story ends, please comment below and tell us what kindness means to you, because your words might inspire someone who feels unseen today. And so the millionaire's child, who once had nothing to eat, grew up nourished by an act of courage and compassion, proving that sometimes the richest gift comes from the humblest hands, and that pure kindness has the power to rewrite destinies forever.